In this week's devotional, I'd like to go back and look at a passage that I preached on just a few weeks ago, and tie it into some of the things that are going on in our society today. It's found in Mark chapter 3, beginning in verse 31. And it took place in the midst of a challenge. Jesus was being accused of being demon-possessed. His family was thinking that he had gone crazy, and he had just finished dealing with the accusation that he was demon-possessed, and Jesus' family is outside wanting to talk to him, and this is what happens. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, "Your mother and brothers are outside looking for you." "Who are my mother and my brothers?" he asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother." And it may seem like a strange passage to look at in our current context, but it speaks to something that has been profoundly displayed in Christian history, and that is, despite times of oppression, despite times when we did not treat other human beings as being created in God's image, it is central to the gospel message that all people have value. And here, when Jesus is making this statement, what does he mean by "who are my mother and brothers"? Of course he knew who his biological mother and brothers were, but what he is saying is that the new kingdom is ushering in a new higher order of family, and that those who are called together to be followers of Christ are brother and sister in a way that actually surpasses blood. And this is coming out of a culture that was often perceived as being very racist, and not racist, but pride in their nationhood. They thought themselves maybe better than everyone else because of their relationship to God. And the reason why I say not racist is because the Bible does not really address race. If you look at the stories throughout the history of Israel, race has nothing to do with what was going on in the world. The world did not divide itself in ancient times by race, but by nationality, by tribe and tongue. And so, while there wasn't what we would call racism, there was sure nationalism and pride in that way, which would be the closest similarity to racism we have today. But anyway, the striking thing in this is that Jesus is changing the definition, and it is new, but it was prophesied. We've spoken about this many times before, that Abraham was called and chosen to be the father of a nation for the explicit purpose of blessing the whole world. That through Abraham's seed, all the nations of the world would be blessed. And we see in this moment with Jesus, in this house with people gathered around, when he points to his disciples and fellow believers and says, "These are my mother and brothers and sisters," he is instituting a new order. An order not based on tribal affinity, not based on national affinity, not even based on family line, but one based on a common belief. So not only does the Bible give us our understanding of individual human worth, and that coming out of being created in God's image. We also have in this new age of the church the value given to each and every human being as not only being made in the image of God, but redeemable. And that every person we meet, whether they're red, yellow, black, or white, anything in between, no matter what tongue, language they speak, no matter where they come from in the world, there is a common humanity. And that is based on being created in the image of God, but also that every person you meet, Christ died for. Christ died to open up the possibility of belief and open up the opportunity for membership in God's redeemed family. That's the good news of Jesus Christ. And that's an answer to the voices that we're hearing now in our society today. It's an echo from a Christian age. And while we live in an amoral age, I saw recently on a Twitter post a very telling little poem mocking Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And it says, no lives matter, this I know, because Charles Darwin told me so. And that's the age we live in. And yet there is still yearning in the heart of people, the acknowledgement of the truth that all human beings have value. And we as Christians know why. First, because we're created in God's image. And second, because God loved that person enough to die for them. And that was why Jesus came. And that is the good news. May God bless you this week.